Good morning. This is an absolutely revelational day. So, I've come across some writings from my past, and you know, development of self takes time. And one thing that I've come to recognize is that it never stops, right? And so, as we're progressing through our lives, we're always learning new things. And I've said many times, and I've posted very often that each one of our experiences provides us a new lesson, and how we take those lessons and what we do with them determines how quickly we get to move on to the next one. So if we look at life as just a continual learning and growing process, I think it makes it a little bit easier. Some of us may feel like we're kind of stuck in a certain place, not able to attain the things that we've planned for. And frequently, it's because there's something that we still have not learned where we are at this moment. And so, in looking back at some of my writings, and then in reading some new things more recently, I've kind of determined that, so there was a point in time where my self esteem wasn't where it needed to be. And it was still in my adulthood. And so when I'm working with youth, I kind of have to get back into that mindset. What was going on with me at that time? Where was I, as opposed to looking at them and trying to help them from the standpoint that I am now? And so, just to rewind and look back and think back, close your eyes and go back into your childhood, because sometimes you actually just have to appreciate your growth. You have to appreciate what you've accomplished thus far, and it may not be everything that you had originally planned to have accomplished, but we've got to learn to appreciate self. And so if you close your eyes and you think way back to high school, it was quite a while for me ago, and look at how you even changed from ninth grade to 12th grade, and look at how you've changed since that time. Prayerfully, there has been a lot of growth and development in who you are, not just what you do, because we are not only our actions, just like we are not only a physical body. So if you look at from that concept, your actions being the physical thing, but your spirit being everything else, because it really is. And so when you're right in your spiritual stance and in your spiritual positioning, it's easier for you to roll with the punches, or to change the punches and dodge and move. It's easier for you to foresee some things. It's easier for you to look at situations and say, wait a minute, let me speak to this situation and change it to recreate what I want it to be, or what I need it to be. Not just for me, but for those involved. And so growth and maturity come in. And I keep using the word growth because from the time we were seedlings, from the time we were in our mother's bellies, there was that whole development process. And thankfully, throughout life, it does not, or should not, I should say, stop. And so, as you're growing and maturing, you need to come to understand your own power. And a lot of us deflect power to God. But if we believe in God, we should understand that He lives inside of us. We are the carriers and transmitters of Godhead. In other words, we are the ones that bless others. And so a lot of times you hear say, God bless me, so on and so forth. But again, that is deflection. God sent this person to bless me, or put it in their hearts to bless me. So that all being said, how is it that we can understand our responsibility in for our lives and in the lives of others? So our words, just like God, because we were created in his image, that means we were created like he was. We have similar personalities. We have similar abilities, okay? So what I'm saying to you is if you believe in God, then you've got to understand your responsibility, your creative power, who you are in God, who God is in you, how you let the Godship in you live and rise and move and do. So let's understand that we must not limit ourselves, because at that point we are limiting God. So if we see ourselves right now as being creators, as being empowered to speak forth our lives, and see, it's not just what we say with our mouths when we're thinking about it, it's what we think about ourselves when we are not necessarily thinking about being positive, but more so understanding that we have subconscious thoughts that pop into our heads when we least expect it, or they're actually not even popping in, they're always there. And so when we were growing up, we developed a specific belief system that came from the words that we heard from others about ourselves. And at that point in time, we didn't understand or didn't have any ability to control what we did with what we heard. However, as adults, now we've got to stop relying on others for our development of self, for understanding and seeing ourselves who and what we are. Okay, so how do you work on that? Number one, let's go back and figure out what it is that we subconsciously believe about ourselves. What is it that we see? What do we think of ourselves? And so I've done this process, and I do it regularly just to make sure that nothing false has kind of snuck its way in. So get out a pen and paper. You want to sit down and you really want to think of think of when you're in a situation. For children, I always tell them, think about when you're in the middle of a test, and let's say you get stuck on a specific problem, and you can't remember exactly how to do it. What is it that you say to yourselves in that moment? What do I say? Oh, I'm so dumb, or oh, I don't have a good memory, I've forgotten? Do I say, I'm so stupid, I don't believe that I don't know how to do this? Or do I say, hang on, let me calm down, I know this answer, let me pull it together and find the information that I need, because it exists, it's available to us at all times. Anything that we need to know is available to us in the spirit, in the spiritual realm, in a realm that you don't see. So you've probably heard that energy is information, and energy and information don't die. They don't vanish. They are always available to us. So things that you have not necessarily been taught, you can tap into and know. So we have constant available access to information so that we can be successful. We've just got to understand how to tap into the spirit to attain it, how to walk in that realm so we don't have to keep coming in and out of it. And so that's a sidebar. But what is it that you say to yourself when you've got something important to do and you've got so many other things that you feel overwhelmed? Do you consider yourself as being unlucky? Do you consider you a poor decision maker? So you got to honestly evaluate what it is that you say and think about yourself, and then go back and think, where did this come from? So let's think this through. You get out your sheet of paper with your pen and you start jotting these things down. How do I genuinely see myself? What do I genuinely think about myself when no one's around? It doesn't have anything to do with outside influence or anything like that. But what is it that I am saying subconsciously to myself? So you've got to figure this out so that you can properly replace it with your truths. And so this is us speaking back into ourselves and empowering ourselves with self-love and self-knowledge and self-acceptance. So these things aren't necessarily bad per se, because we can change them. We can adapt. We can change our belief system in such a way that we empower ourselves as opposed to destroying ourselves. And so you got this out, and we're going to do this thing called replacement, because you can't just get rid of a belief. You have to replace it. You can't get rid of a pain. You've got to replace it with love. So pain and healing, you'll find as you're doing this list, a lot of things will start to come up for you. A lot of negative memories will start to come up. What it was that maybe your parents said or did to you, or a sibling or whatever. And it's okay. It's perfectly fine, because you've got to address all of these things in order to heal, in order to get past the blockages. You see what I'm saying? So just like in an artery, when there is a blockage, a lot of times the doctors will first initiate a blood thinner to try to make the blood a little more movable through your veins. And in that process, you can actually find that you bleed easier because your blood is moving. So a small little prick might cause you to gush. And this is the same thing with when you're going through the healing process. A small thought might cause you to go into a crying spell because you've not addressed these issues. So our automatic response to negativity or bad things is to suppress it. And so we've got to figure out, how much we've suppressed throughout our lives so that we can go back in, fix it, and change it. And it's fully doable. It's fully possible, but you've got to first develop this thing called self-love, where you're like, you know what? Regardless of what I've gone through, I am me. I am the only person that I can never escape. I can never run and hide from. So on this day today, I pray that you can declare to yourself, I love me. I love me not for what I am, but I love me for who I am internally. And so we're going to work on bringing your internal truths out, making sure that we replace those negative things with positive reinforcement, with love, with acceptance, with compassion, because you got to be compassionate for yourself before you can sincerely love or be compassionate for another. And so throughout our lives, we've made decisions that were not always the best. But through it, you gained an experience. You learned something, not just about the external world, but you've learned something about yourself. And that is so important that we understand that we should glean whatever we can from both the negative and positive experiences. There's always something to learn, always something to come to an understanding on. And so the revelation today that I pray that you find is that love of self is the foundation to everything that we want to achieve. And going back into our subconscious thought and coming to understand and recognize what it is that we believe about ourselves and fixing that to be our actual truths is important. So today, I love you because I love me. I'm thankful for everything that I've experienced, for every person that I've met, for every decision that I've made that has brought me to this place today, that has brought me to this mindset today, that has brought me to the greater understanding of who I am. and my ability to overcome every single thing, every single obstacle that comes my way. And this, I speak to you today. You are powerful. You are beautiful. You can do anything that you consciously and subconsciously decide to make happen. Be empowered today. Love and blessings to you all. I pray that everything that you need, not just want, but that you need, enters into your life at the very moment that it needs to.